You've probably done something kind and felt somewhere underneath that it wasn't fully clean. Maybe you helped someone, but part of you wanted to be seen doing it. Maybe you apologized, but part of you was still protecting yourself. The action was right. The inner state, less so. And here's what the tradition we're studying says about that gap. It matters. Causally. Not morally. Causally. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the same action, performed twice, can produce two genuinely different outcomes. And more importantly, you'll understand where the real cause is actually being set. Most people think of cause and effect in purely physical terms. Action A produces result B. You help someone, they're helped. You build something, it exists. Clean, linear, done. But that model is the surface layer. It's the part of the iceberg you can see above water. What the Hermetic tradition mapped across two texts that were separated by centuries, but said the same thing, is that causality operates across multiple planes simultaneously. The physical action is real, but it's downstream of something else. A mental plane moves first. Your thought, your intention, the inner state you're carrying when you act, those aren't decorations around the action. They're the actual cause. The physical gesture is the anchor, the crystallization, the point where something already decided on an invisible level makes contact with the visible world. Here's the distinction that changes everything. There's a difference between an action performed from a state and an action used to produce one. When a master acts, the internal cause is already complete. The state is already set. The action that follows is minimal, precise, almost invisible. And yet, it produces effects that 100 louder gestures from someone operating from anxiety or ego could never match. Why? Because the universe, as these texts put it, does not primarily respond to your physical action. It responds to the mental cause that gave rise to it. The action is the seal, not the cause. And if you carry the wrong inner state into your actions, even good actions, you're planting a different seed than you think. This is where karma becomes more than a moral concept. The word itself just means action. But the tradition was precise about what actually generates karma. It's not the act stripped clean of context. It's the totality, the act plus the intention plus the state from which it emerges. Helping someone from genuine care, that's one kind of cause. Helping someone to manage how they see you, that's a different kind of cause. Same exterior, different inner event, different energetic signature going into the field. Now pause here and think about something in your own life. A decision you made that looked right from the outside. Maybe it was right on the surface, but underneath, were you acting from clarity or from fear? From genuine desire to contribute or from a need to be safe? Because both of those plant something, and what they plant doesn't care what the action looked like from the outside. There's a second layer to this, and it's the one most people never reach. One of the old texts says, and this is one of the most important lines in the entire tradition, that a magical experiment is strengthened by silence and destroyed by publication. What they were pointing at isn't secrecy for its own sake. They were pointing at contamination. The moment you broadcast an intention, the moment you start performing your action for an audience, even an audience of one, the inner state shifts, the cause changes. You're no longer acting from the center. You're acting toward the periphery, and the effect follows accordingly. This is why anxious checking destroys what you just built. The moment after you plant a cause on the mental plane and anchor it with action, if you immediately turn around to verify, to check, to seek reassurance, you're pouring acid on something that needs darkness and silence to form. Not because the universe is fragile, because you have changed the inner state. You've moved from trust to anxiety, from cause to reaction, and that shift is real. So here's where we are at the halfway point. The action isn't the cause, the inner state is. The same action from two different inner states is, in the Hermetic sense, two different acts, with two different trajectories. This doesn't mean you need to be perfect before you move. It means you need to be honest about what's driving the movement. And there's a skill in that, a practice, not a technique, an orientation. Before you act, ask one question. Not, is this the right thing to do? That's a moral question. Ask instead, what state am I acting from right now? Not to judge it, to see it clearly. Because what you see clearly, you can work with. What the tradition actually offers here is something more useful than rules. It offers a mechanism. If causality starts on the mental plane, if your inner state is the real cause, then the most powerful leverage point you have isn't the action itself. It's the state you inhabit before the action. Change the state first. Let the action emerge from that, and the action will carry a different charge. This is what the old teachers called righteous action. Not morally righteous, structurally righteous, meaning the action is the natural, minimal, precise output of a state that was already established internally. The effort is small. The effect is large, because the cause is clean. That's the difference between a master and an amateur that one of these texts names directly. The master achieves with a gesture what the amateur cannot achieve with 1,000 efforts. Not because the master is more talented, because the cause the master is working from is already set, on the plane where causes are actually set. There's something clarifying in all of this, if you sit with it. You've been taught to manage your actions, to make the right moves, say the right things, perform the right gestures. And that's not nothing. But if you want to work with the actual mechanism, if you want to understand why similar efforts produce different results in different seasons of your life, the answer isn't in the action. It's in the inner state from which the action emerged. You were carrying something different, a different quality of attention, a different relationship to the outcome, a different level of clarity or fear. That difference is the cause. The action was just the echo. And once you see that clearly, really see it, not as a concept, but as something you can feel in your own experience, the question of how to act becomes much simpler. You stop asking, did I do enough? You start asking, was I present when I did it? That's the shift. That's the whole thing. If this kind of clarity is what you're here for, subscribe. Every video on this channel is built around one law made precise.